And welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're every week talking to interesting people and discussing interesting topics. And this is a guy we haven't had on before.
No, we're sorry, we haven't had him on before. It's the U.S. Marshal for the Western District of Oklahoma, Mike Roach. He is the Marshal. We've titled this show Meet the Marshal, and that's what we intend to do. We're going to find out what he does, how he does it, and what kind of staff he uses to roam our plains.
It should be an interesting show. We'll get to it. You're watching The Verdict, and we'll be right back.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today, making his first appearance on The Verdict is Mike Roach, the United States Marshal for the Western District of Oklahoma. Mike is a graduate of Redlands College. He also is a graduate of the Southwest Law Enforcement Institute in Dallas. He began his law enforcement career with the Oklahoma City Police Department in 1977, made very rapid and significant advances there, attaining the rank of major when he retired in 2002, and in 2002, President Bush appointed Mike to be the Marshal for the Western District of Oklahoma. This is his first appearance, and we're sure glad you'd come talk to us.
Well, thank you, sir. I'm very, very excited about it and very appreciative of the opportunity to be here.
Well, let's get started with a fairly general question. What are, in general, the duties of the U.S. Marshal's Office?
Well, the U.S. Marshal Service is the oldest law enforcement agency in the country. It was created in 1789 to coincide with the creation of the first 13 judicial districts. President Washington appointed one individual, the Marshal, to oversee the law enforcement activities in each one of the 13 districts. And really, the easiest thing to say was they were responsible for the enforcement of all the laws that were in existence at that time. Mm-hmm. Nothing really has changed to this year or this time, with the exception that there are currently 94 judicial districts and 94 marshals, one over each.
How do you interact with the other levels of government? How do you interact with the state of Oklahoma? How do you interact with cities, and in your case, the city of Oklahoma City or Tulsa?
In a variety of levels. We work very closely together with every agency, federal, local, or state agency, and actually on a daily basis. The agency heads meet regularly to see if there's any way that we can support each other's mission, and the officers work together, as I said, almost on a daily basis. We have a very good relationship with the other agencies, and in particular those that we work with every day in the metro area.
Why would a local government contact the U.S. Marshal? If you heard from the Oklahoma City Chief of Police, what likely would he be bringing you into the situation for?
Well, the chief of police is first of all been a long time friend of mine, and one of the things about Oklahoma City, if I might say, in Oklahoma, but particularly in the Oklahoma City area, Oklahoma City is in a unique position in that you have a host of law enforcement agencies in this city, federal, state, and local. And it's one of the very few across the country that everybody, quite frankly, gets along well. We support each other's mission. We actually assign our officers to each other to enhance whatever operation that agency may have ongoing at the time. If I was to hear from the chief of police, it could be for a variety of reasons, but more often than not, it would be of an operation that they've got going in which we can assist them, and an operation in which we have going and if they can offer us some assistance.
Could it be that one of the detectives has uncovered information that requires your participation, or from an information standpoint, something you need to know about?
Absolutely. If they've worked some type of a crime or an incident in Oklahoma City and they have reason to believe that the defendant, or actually the suspect is out of the Oklahoma City area, there is a warrant that has been issued for his arrest, then we are the agency we would take that warrant and effect that arrest, try to locate the subject and take him into custody and then return him to this jurisdiction.
Now, your jurisdiction is basically west of I-35. That's not quite exactly correct, but basically west of I-35 to the state line. Guyman, Eric, and
Yes, sir.
Altus,
Yes,
and
sir.
that whole area. You've
We're
got quite a...
40 of the 77 counties of the Western District of Oklahoma.
How does one become United States Marshal?
Well, it's the responsibility of the senior congressional representative, either the U.S. Senate or House of Representatives, that at the time of the new president takes office, to forward the name or the choice of the individual for U.S. Marshal and U.S. Attorney to the president for appointment. Prior to the appointment, and if the president accepts that name, then an extensive background is conducted by the Department of Justice. The results of that are forwarded to the Department of Justice and the Judicial Committee for review and approval. If it's forwarded beyond that, if it's approved and forwarded beyond that to the U.S. Senate, and it requires a Senate confirmation. Once it's confirmed, it goes back to the president. And if again, he is in agreement with the choice and the results of the background and the review, then he does make the appointment at that time.
It's basically the same procedure for the U.S. Marshal as exists for the United States Attorney and for federal judges.
It is exactly the same process.
So you had a Senate confirmation
Yes, sir.
hearing, you had to appear and do all that.
I did.
How is your background as a very successful Oklahoma City Police Department representative, how has that helped you in assuming a complementary but different role as U.S. Marshal?
I think that, and let me first say that I think Oklahoma City Police Department is the finest police department in the country, and I think I bar none. And I think the management and the command of that department has always been such to, as you begin your career in the department and you go through the ranks, to be very comfortable in the fact that you know what it takes to perform that duty, you know what it takes to perform that rank and requirements and expectations of you. I think this is exactly what happened to me. I learned very early on about the people that trained me as a police officer what the importance of accountability and the importance of that police officer when it comes to representing not only himself, the department, but the community and the state and law enforcement in general. And I was very, very fortunate in that aspect. I had some very good training officers. And as I began to move up in rank, they actually expected you really, to learn the responsibilities of that rank inside out. And so as I moved up, I began to learn how to manage people. I began to learn how to manage and to work with budgets that sometimes may be stretched just as far as they're going to get stretched, and how to interact and with the public and those that actually put their trust into you. And hopefully, I believe successfully.
Do you interact with the FBI?
Yes, again, almost on a daily basis.
And what would that relationship consist of? If they were calling you to do something, what might it be? What areas?
Well, twofold. One of the responsibilities of the Marshal Service is to host what we refer to as the Metro Fugitive Task Force. And that is an agency, or that is a unit within our agency, that's made up of 14 different federal, state, and local agencies, the FBI being one. in which they have an FBI agent actually assigned to our office every day. His responsibility is to report and operate on the Metro Fugitive Squad. Again, that's FBI is one of 14 agencies. We, in turn, support their efforts in the JTTF, the Joint Terrorism Task Force. And it's simply just an understanding that, and a good understanding that we're there when you need us, and we know that they are when we need them. And it's to be able to take one of their agents and assign him full-time to our agency just brings us both closer together, the agencies closer together, and the agency directors and all. And again, I said, we enjoy a great relationship. We all know each other. We all know each other personally. And I think it does nothing but benefit the community, law enforcement community in the area.
In just a few seconds before we go to a break, tell us about the size of your office.
There are 27 people assigned to the Western District of Oklahoma in one of two locations. Oklahoma City, 24 people assigned there, with 7 of them being support staff, non-commissioned deputy United States Marshals. And then our satellite office is in Lawton, federal courthouse in Lawton, and there are 3 people assigned there, one of which is for the administrative support. Anywhere there is a federal courthouse, there will be an Office of United States Marshal Service.
Okay. Mike Roach is a United States Marshal serving the citizens of Oklahoma City and the Western District in the state of Oklahoma. We'll be back with more after this. You're watching The Verdict.
This cane is called For All the Grandfathers, and I dedicate it to my grandfather, Franklin Allen. Me and him just had like a spiritual thing where I just learned lessons from him without him telling me anything. The 3 dots on the feather represent my immediate family, and as my grandfather told me about the Chickasaws, that family is the most important thing. To me, the eagle sees everything, as our elders do, also representing my grandfather and his bravery in the Korean War. I actually just started on the wings for the eagles, and that's when my mother called and told me that he passed away. He took his journey. It's like somebody watching you when nobody's there. I guess he wanted me to finish it, so I finished it. He's been with me ever since. It shows how strong a Chickasaw family can be.
Home values are down in some states, but not in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's home values have increased 4.2% during the past 12 months. Unlike some states where home values have decreased as much as 20%. Good thing you're in Oklahoma. There may be real estate problems in some states, but there has never been a better time than now to buy or sell a home in Oklahoma. One of the most affordable states in the country, Oklahomans are buying and selling homes every day, and an Oklahoma realtor can show you how. Good thing you're in Oklahoma.
That land next door was a mess. Take more than a lawnmower to revive that land. I heard the oil and natural gas people was cleaning up old oil sites, and it wouldn't cost us a plug nickel. Oh, yes, sir, it was quite a revival. The whole church showed up, want to make a playground for the kids. It sure is a blessing.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're visiting with Mike Roach. He's a U.S. Marshal. Kent?
Mike, tell our viewers about how you recruit people to join the Marshal Service and what kind of training they have to go through to become an Assistant United States Marshal.
The Marshal Service has the same recruiting requirements and procedures as any other Department of Justice federal law enforcement agency.
Including the FBI.
Including the FBI, ATF, the Drug Enforcement Administration. It just simply comes down to the agency that you prefer to work for based on whatever duties that agency is responsible for. You apply just as you would in any of the agencies, and if you're fortunate enough to be selected, then you begin the process at that time. Our training facility for a Deputy U.S. Marshal is at Glencoe, Georgia. Brunswick, Georgia, actually. It is the federal training facility for most every federal agency with the exception of the FBI. They are close by but not actually located on those grounds. And it's an extensive training program in Brunswick. that the person goes through to become a deputy marshal.
Well, from the time they sign up and get accepted into the program until they're officially designated an assistant United States Marshal, how long does the training take?
Training will normally run anywhere from 6 months.
Wow.
And that's the basic training. Then at some point during your career, if you elect to go into one particular area of the Marshal Service, it may require you to go back to Glencoe, back to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, FLETC as we refer to it, and go through additional training for that specific position that you desire.
If you were talking to a young person today who's looking at maybe the Oklahoma City Police Department, the FBI, the U.S. Marshal Service, why would you tell them that they ought to seriously consider the Marshal Service?
The Marshal Service is just a historically neat, if you will, agency. And the reason I say that is again, as I mentioned, it is the oldest law enforcement agency in the country, and the authority is all-encompassing. Agencies, as you all know, everyone knows, that have specific duties. The Drug Enforcement Station, the DEA, FBI, they're very, very select duties mandated by law, and the Marshal Service has all-encompassing authority. Now, that does not mean that we go out and we do what the FBI does or we do what the Drug Enforcement Administration does, but we supplant them and we support them. It gives you an opportunity to work with every other law enforcement agency that there is. It gives you an opportunity to travel, and it gives you the opportunity to really have an impact on the safety of your community. One of the biggest responsibilities that we have is the apprehension of those who are wanted by the federal government. And if you are wanted by the government and the warrant exists, then it's going to be assigned to the Marshal Service and ultimately assigned to one of those deputies who's going to be responsible for locating that subject wherever he might be and to take him into custody. I have to laugh sometimes because Judge Cothran pointed out to me one time, Judge Robin Cothran, who I have all the respect in the world for.
Federal judge in the
Federal
Western
judge.
District, former chief judge.
Absolutely. Told me one time, and she said it in a joking manner, and we both laughed, but the fact is it's true. The best thing that ever happened to the Marshal Service was Tommy Lee Jones. Because until you saw the movie The Fugitive or the movie U.S. Marshals, very few people had any idea what we do. And I can't tell you this is exciting every day as what you see in those shows, but it is an extremely exciting position, and you do very much what they depicted in those movies.
I'm going to guess that some of your work involves white-collar crime.
Yes, sir.
Some of it involves immigration. Some of it involves illegal drugs. What sector of all of that criminal behavior takes the most part of your office's time?
The one thing to remember is for us to get involved in any investigation until that warrant for arrest is issued. So there's a court order to take that individual into custody, and you have a wanted individual, then realistically we play a supporting role up to that point, and then we take on the responsibility to locate and apprehending that person. If you look at the number of warrants that we receive every day, in order for us to assume the responsibility of that warrant, it has to be of a violent nature, either a state or federal, and it is considered to be a violent offender. We serve a large number of drug warrants. Unfortunately, that's an issue that plagues the country, and a tremendous number of warrants and the paperwork that we get and assign are related to drug offenses.
We're seeing increased activity, especially in some of the southern states. I know the Phoenix area is having a number of kidnappings increase. Are you seeing that type of behavior start to increase in the state of Oklahoma, or so far have we been immune to what's happening in some of those other bigger cities?
So far, we've been immune to that. Not to any level that certainly that South Texas or Phoenix are cities that along that southwest border experience, and thankfully we haven't. And again, I go back. I think a lot of that is to the credit of each law enforcement agency here in this metro area and how well everybody works together. I do know that the Phoenix Police Department and the Marshal for the District of Arizona work very well together and have great relationship. But they happen to be in a part of the country where they're the first to be affected in those particular areas. And again, I'm sorry it takes such a long time answering that question, but we're fortunate because we haven't been subjected to that level just yet.
If your office is involved in apprehending the violent and the most violent people for which a warrant has been issued, and a lot of it is in drugs and other areas, I suspect your United States Marshals are in harm's way often.
They put themselves, unfortunately, the job calls for them to be in positions where, you know, if things were to really go bad, they could be hurt. We're very fortunate. That's not happened.
Yeah, you've been there about 7 years.
Yes, sir.
Has it been
We've never had, during the time that I've been here, a deputy that's been seriously injured. There have been times in the past 7 years in which the possibility existed and the circumstances were such they could have. But one thing that I'm so proud of this agency and the relationship they have with the others, everybody knows how the other one is going to react, and there are certain standards and guidelines that based on whatever situation you're going to go into, everybody knows how the other one's going to react to that situation and what they're going to handle. They train together. They work together day in and day out, and they know each other very well. And the training is not unlike that of Oklahoma City Police Department or the FBI. It's training that is directed towards the officer's safety. And there are certain things that are universal in every agency, and we've been very, very fortunate to have nobody seriously hurt this time.
You're funded by some system. How does that funding happen, and is there any discretion, and at what point do you lobby for additional funds or find out how much you're getting?
Well, we of course operate on the budget that's submitted to the President for signature. Congress determines.
Is this Department of Justice?
Yes. Ultimately, then the Department of Justice, who then divides it up into each one of the law enforcement agencies. The bulk of the budget goes to the Marshal Service as a whole, and is managed by our headquarters in Washington, D.C. However, each one of the 94 districts is allotted X number of dollars based on activity, manpower, resources, and in many cases we are to manage that particular amount of money. But the bulk of it is managed by the Department of Justice.
How has that funding been in the last few years? Been consistent? Has it been going up and going down?
It's been going up. Maybe not as high as much as we'd like to. There's some things that the agency has had in place that we'd like to have been able to fund it maybe a little bit more, but you know, that's not something that's just limited to the Marshal Service. It's everybody, and we accept it and we work with that.
Just in the few seconds we have
Sure.
left, tell us a little bit about your office's involvement in the Metro Fugitive Squad and how many people you've rounded up.
We, as I said, that's one of our main responsibilities. There are 14 agencies that contribute to that unit. There are 19 people who make that unit up on a daily basis. Those 14 agencies agree to provide the individual and the individual's equipment at no cost to the Marshal Service, but simply to support the issue or support the desire to remove those violent offenders from the streets. Last year, in calendar year 2008, that one unit was responsible for the arrest of about 620 people. Again, all violent offenders, which ultimately resulted in the clearance of almost 1,000 warrants that were on file.
Mike Roach is the U.S. Marshal for the Western District of the state of Oklahoma, serving Oklahoma City and all points west,
Yes, sir.
basically. Mike, thanks for coming on The Verdict.
Thank you
we
very
learned a lot.
much. I've enjoyed it. Thank you
Thanks
very
for your
much.
service to the state of Oklahoma.
Thank you, sir.
And the people in the United States. Kent and I'll have a final word right after this.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. We're wrapping up a show with Mike Roach, the U.S. Marshal for the Western District of the state of Oklahoma.
Yes, Mike gets high marks from all those in the system that work with him and know about what he does, about what a fine professional he is, and what a great background to become U.S. Marshal, having all those years in the Oklahoma City Police Department. And he and his crew do the hardest, dirtiest work of law enforcement, and they do it very well.
Next week, we'll have John Coyle and Mike McCarville, two old friends, coming back on the show.
Yes, considering the topic they're going to talk about, we might need the marshal back to referee this legalization of drugs.
Should be an interesting show. And in the meantime, be sure and go to our website and tell us about a show that you'd like to see here. It's theverdict.tv. You can go there, log on, and tell us about a topic you'd like to see us discuss on a future edition of The Verdict. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We want to thank our guest, Mike Roach, and we hope to see you next week right here on The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.